Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Welcome to another edition of Red Sox Focus. Today we are running a mailbag, and with no game yesterday, it felt like the perfect opportunity to sit down and work through some of the questions that have been coming in from the community. The Red Sox are currently sitting at 1-5. The home opener is coming up later today, and there is no shortage of things to discuss. Let us get right into it. The first question comes from Lucent Moon on YouTube, and it is a strong one to open with. If the worst-case scenario plays out and the Red Sox finish last in the division, is Craig Breslow on the hot seat? That is a genuinely layered question, and my answer is yes and no. And I recognize that sounds like a non-answer, so let me explain the reasoning behind it. If the Red Sox finish last in the American League East, if it is a genuinely dreadful season from start to finish, if the additions made this past offseason prove to be failures across the board, and if Breslow once again bottoms out at the trade deadline the way he has in each of the previous years he has held this position, I still do not believe he gets fired at the conclusion of the season. The goodwill he has built within the ownership group, within the front office, and among the people who make those decisions appears to be substantial enough to absorb one bad year. One difficult season, viewed in isolation, is unlikely to cost him the job. Where the yes component enters the equation is in what follows. If this season goes poorly, Breslow will absolutely enter 2027 on the hot seat. That pressure will be real, it will be earned, and it will be well documented. The distinction worth drawing here is between being fired at the end of a bad season and entering the following season with your position genuinely in jeopardy. Those are two different things, and I believe Breslow lands in the latter category rather than the former if 2026 goes sideways. Now, fairness requires acknowledging what Breslow has actually accomplished, particularly on the pitching development side of the operation. The farm system he inherited was heavily tilted toward position players, with very little in the way of pitching prospects who had a credible path to the major league roster. That has changed meaningfully. Connolly, Early, and Payton have both already made their major league debuts. Eason, Phillips, and Witherspoon are working their way through the minors and generating legitimate attention. You have 5 arms, and potentially more, who are knocking on the door of the big leagues. That is a substantive transformation of the organizational pipeline, and Breslow deserves credit for it. But his shortcomings are equally real and equally well documented. The trade deadline has been a persistent weakness since he took the position. Every year, when the moment arrives to add the piece that pushes a competitive team over the top, the result has been underwhelming. The roster construction, as currently assembled, leaves meaningful questions unanswered. The outfield situation remains a logjam, with Masataka Yoshida and Jarren Duran sharing designated hitter responsibilities in a way that serves neither players' development nor the lineup's overall productivity. And the promises made entering this offseason have not been kept. The public commitment was to add power, to add slugging, to address the run production void that has been apparent for 2 seasons. Instead, the organizational pivot went toward run prevention and pitching, a strategy that, through the first week and a half of the season, has not produced results in either direction. There is no shortage of legitimate criticism to level at Breslow. Fired after this year? Unlikely. Under significant pressure entering 2027 if things do not improve? Absolutely. The second question comes from Video Game Nation, and it is the natural follow-up to the Breslow conversation. Is Alex Cora on the hot seat even this early in the season after just 6 games? My opinion, and I want to be clear that this is my read based on everything that has been reported and observed from the outside, is that Cora is not on the hot seat, and I do not believe he will be. Everything I have seen and heard suggests he is genuinely respected and valued within the ownership group and the front office. His relationship with Breslow appears to be functional and collaborative. The players, by all available accounts, love playing for him. The institutional support appears to be real and durable. I understand the frustration that gets directed at Cora. He is the manager. He is the most visible face of the on-field product. And when the team struggles, that blame flows naturally and predictably in his direction. But if you actually work through the hierarchy of responsibility honestly, Cora sits third on that list, not first. The primary responsibility for this team's current limitations belongs to the front office and ownership. The roster construction, as we just discussed, is not good enough. The ownership group has shown a consistent reluctance to spend at the level required to compete sustainably at the top of the American League East. Those are structural decisions made well above the manager's level of authority, and no manager in baseball wins consistently with a roster that was assembled below the competitive threshold. Second in that hierarchy are the players themselves. Cora cannot go out and field a ground ball. He cannot stand in the batter's box and make contact. He cannot manufacture runs from the dugout. When the players are not performing, games are lost regardless of how well the manager manages, and that accountability belongs to the roster. The manager comes third, and Cora is not without fault. I want to be fair about that. The team did not look ready to begin the season, and some portion of that falls on him. The handling of the Carlos Narvaez situation and the drama that has surfaced around it reflects, at least in part, on the culture the manager maintains. The organization's failure to effectively utilize the automatic ball strike system is something that falls squarely on Cora and his coaching staff. These are real and legitimate criticisms, but the core reasons this team is losing are not managerial in origin. Cora fields the roster he is given. He constructs lineups from the players the front office and ownership have provided. If he had been the decision-maker this offseason, Alex Bregman would not be playing for the Chicago Cubs right now. He is, and Cora had no say in that transaction. You cannot hold the manager accountable for roster decisions he did not make. If your frustration needs a target, direct it at Craig Breslow. Direct it at John Henry. They are the primary architects of this team's current limitations. Cora is not beyond criticism, but the front office and ownership group deserve the lion's share of it first. Is Cora on the hot seat? I genuinely do not believe he is, and I think a lot of the fire Cora sentiment in the comments is driven more by the instinct to blame the most visible figure than by a clear-eyed assessment of where the actual problems originate. The next question comes from a family member, and it is a genuinely excellent one that speaks to what a large portion of Red Sox Nation is feeling right now. When do we truly start getting nervous about this team's playoff chances? There is a great deal of catastrophizing happening at the moment, and it is understandable. The Red Sox are 1-5. Aside from opening day, they have been largely uninspiring. They are tied for one of the worst records in baseball alongside the White Sox and the Athletics. None of that is comforting, but perspective matters. The 2025 Red Sox started the season 2-4, one additional win over the current club, and they went on to make the playoffs and win 89 games. A slow start does not automatically foreclose a good season. History has proven that repeatedly, and the sample size of 6 games is simply too small to draw definitive conclusions from. Looking at the April schedule, there are challenging opponents in the Padres and the Brewers, but there are also matchups against the Cardinals, the Twins, and the Tigers, teams that Boston is arguably better than on paper. And the month closes with an American League East gauntlet, the Yankees at home, followed by road series against the Baltimore Orioles and the Toronto Blue Jays. That closing stretch is where the real information will emerge. My position is that by the time the Red Sox have completed that April gauntlet, we will have a genuinely clear and honest picture of what this team is and what it is capable of. That is the first real checkpoint, the moment when either the panic button becomes a reasonable option or we can exhale and acknowledge that things are stabilizing. Until then, the data is insufficient. End of April is when the conversation about playoff viability becomes worth having in earnest. The next question comes from Andrew on Instagram, who asks for thoughts on Caleb Durbin. Durbin has not started the year well, and there is no diplomatic way to frame it otherwise. 18 at-bats, no hits, no runs scored, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. He was one of the marquee additions of the offseason, acquired just as spring training was getting underway, and the early returns have been genuinely poor. That is simply the truth. That said, Durbin himself remains measured and process-oriented about the slow start. He has acknowledged that he does not feel lost at the plate, that the work right now is about making adjustments, getting the ball in the air more consistently, and putting himself in position to find results. There is also a legitimate argument that some of his hard contact batted balls have found fielders at a disproportionate rate. Over the course of a season, that normalizes. Eventually, those balls find gaps. But the more important point worth making here is about expectation management. Durbin was never brought in to replace Alex Bregman's offensive production. That was not his role, and anyone who projected him into that function was operating outside of his actual profile. Tyler Milliken put it plainly and accurately when he noted that if you are looking for ceiling from Caleb Durbin, you are going to be disappointed. He is a league-average bat who plays above-average defense. The player tasked with replacing Bregman's offensive output is William Contreras. That is the organizational design. Durbin's value is his glove at third base, his contact-oriented approach, and his ability to put the ball in play at a park that should theoretically suit that skill set. Nobody anticipated that he would be hitless through 2 full series. That was not part of any reasonable projection. But I am not deeply concerned. He has been solid defensively, the adjustments he is describing are real and achievable, and he will find his footing. The actual void that needs filling, the power bat to compensate for the loss of Rafael Devers, remains unfilled, and that is the roster construction problem worth directing energy toward. Austin, a longtime supporter of the channel, who I had the pleasure of meeting at Fenway Park last year, asks what the first significant roster moves of the season might look like. The most obvious candidate is Johan Oviedo, who has since been placed on the injured list, so that question has been partially answered by events. Connolly Early had clearly earned a roster spot on merit alone, and with Patrick Sandoval scheduled for a rehab start, there is a credible path to him joining the active roster in a bullpen capacity, if that outing goes well. Sandoval is also a player I view as a prime trade candidate at some point later in the season, which gives the organization added incentive to build his value by putting him in situations where he can succeed. Beyond the bullpen picture, I do not anticipate sweeping changes in the immediate term. Connor Wong has been excellent behind the plate, which removes any urgency around a catcher move. There is no meaningful buzz around a Yoshida trade or a Duran trade at this point. And while I am always prepared to be wrong, the Devers trade last May was something I did not see coming. The early weeks of April do not feel like a window where transformative moves are imminent. Things can change rapidly in this organization, but as of right now, the major structural pieces appear to be staying in place. The final question of the mailbag comes from Colby, who asks, besides Roman Anthony and Garrett Crochet, who is my favorite player on this roster? That one requires no deliberation. It is Jarren Duran. I have his City Connect jersey. I got to meet him on the field at Photo Day, which was a genuinely memorable experience. What draws both me and my mom to Duran as a player is the way he reminds us of Dustin Pedroia, that scrappy, high-energy, makes things happen on the bases quality that makes every plate appearance and every trip around the bases feel like something is about to happen. Getting to watch him win All-Star Game MVP in person when the Midsummer Classic was held in Dallas in 2024 was one of the better baseball experiences I have had in recent memory. I do not want to see him traded, though the possibility exists and cannot be fully dismissed in an organization that has shown a willingness to move significant pieces. For now, though, it is Duran, without question. Who is your favorite Red Sox player? Let us know in the comments. Past or present, no restrictions. Anthony and Crochet are completely fair answers. Sound off below. That is going to wrap up this edition of Red Sox Focus. Thank you all for the questions, thank you for watching, and make sure you are subscribed if you are not already. We will be live for Garrett Crochet's next start, and you do not want to miss it. We will see you tomorrow. Go Sox!
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.